Greetings and salutations. Today we will be covering the case of the disappearance of Asha Degree. Asha was born in 1990 to a Harold and Jaquilla Degree. The Degrees raised both their children in a house on Oakcrest Drive, which was a residential subdivision amidst the generally rural area on the northern part of Shelby, North Carolina, on the western edge, Charlotte metropolitan area. Both parents worked regular jobs nearby, while the children would often let themselves in after school. Their parents expected them to be at home doing their homework or finished with it by the time they returned. They made sure their children would be insulated from dangerous outside influences and had a life centered and focused around their extended family, the church, and school. The Degree family did not have an accessible computer for the children at the time. Quoting, "Every time you turned on the TV, there was some pedophile that had lured somebody's children or child away via the internet," Jaquilla recalled in 2013 in a Jet interview. Jaquilla said Asha handled this well. She was cautious, shy, and content most of the time to stay within the limits her parents set. She was scared to death of dogs. She would later recall and state that, "I never thought she would go out of the house." Asha was in the 4th grade at the nearby Falston Elementary School, going into the 3-day weekend on the 2nd week of February of the year 2000. Cleveland County schools would be closed on Friday, February 11th, while the Degree parents still had work to do. Their children were to spend the day at their aunt's house in the same neighborhood. It would be from there that they went to their youth basketball practice at their school the following day. Asha would be noted as being the point guard for her basketball team, which had lost its first season game. Her parents recalled that she was somewhat upset by this, crying along with her teammates afterwards. However, it is unbelieved to be connected to this due to her having seemingly gotten over it and watched her brother's game with some amount of joy. Now to focus in on the incident itself. Asha Jaquilla Degree went missing at the age of 9 from Shelby, North Carolina, in the United States in the early morning hours of February 14th in the year 2000. For reasons as to yet unknown, she packed her bags and left her family's home. She began walking along the nearby North Carolina Highway number 18. And despite there being a storm with very heavy rain and winds, she continued on doing so. It would be noted that several passing trucks saw her on Highway 18, and even went so far as one of them stopping to approach her to check if she was okay. This was around 1 mile from her home. She quickly ran away into a wooded area, and she left the roadside in its totality. In the morning, her parents would discover her missing from her bedroom. And unfortunately for all those involved, no one has seen her since. An intensive search quickly followed. Said search quickly led to the locating of her personal belongings and effects near the area where she was last seen. A year and a half later, and her book bag, still packed, was found near a construction site along the highway where she went missing. This was in the Shelby area of Morganton. At this point, it is believed that here was where she ran into the woods. Currently, a billboard stands in this location, appealing for anybody who could help find her to contribute to the search. Initially, the circumstances seemed to point to the disappearance, suggesting that it was her running away from home. However, investigators would not find a clear reason why she might have done so. And it was noted that she was a younger child, younger than most of those who run away. Years after her disappearance, it would be concluded by authorities that Degree had been abducted by someone following her when she left her home. The case has drawn national media attention in multiple instances, including in 2015 when the Federal Bureau of Investigations, also known as the FBI, joined in with state and county authorities to reopen the investigation, going so far as to offering a reward for any information that would help solve the case. To go further in, the timeline goes as follows. On February 13th, which was a Sunday, the children went to church from their relative's house, and then they returned home. Around 8 p.m. that night, both children were in bed, in the room which both of them shared. Almost an hour later, the power would go out in the neighborhood due to a nearby car accident. The power would come back around 12:30 a.m., at which point Harold checked his children and saw both Asha and O'Brien asleep in their beds. He would check once more before himself going to bed. This would be at 2:30 a.m. on February 14th, and once more he found both of his children in bed. Shortly after this, O'Brien, which at the time was 10 years old, recalled hearing his sister's bed squeak. He did not wake up and or look to see what had happened. Apparently, around this time, Asha had gotten out of bed and started taking her book bag, which had been previously packed, containing several sets of clothing and personal items, and left the house. Between 3:45 and 4:15 a.m., motorists, to include a truck driver, saw her walking outside in a southward direction on Highway 18, wearing a long-sleeved white t-shirt and white pants. This was just north of the junction of Highway 108. These individuals would go on to report to police and tell them what they saw, after seeing a TV report about the girl's disappearance. The motorists would go on to say that he turned his car around because he thought, strange, a small child would be out there by herself at that hour. He ended up circling 3 times and saw Degree run into the woods by the roadside and disappear. It was a rainy night, and the witnesses said there was a storm raging when they saw her. The county sheriff, Dan Crawford, said, "We are pretty sure it was her because the description they gave was consistent with what we know she had been wearing." The sheriff would go on to add that they also saw her in the same place and headed towards the same direction. Her mother awoke at 5:45 a.m. in order to get the children ready for school. However, on the morning of February 14th, normally an important day since it was not only Valentine's Day, but also the wedding anniversary of the parent of the Degree children. This involved a routine change that included drawing a bath for them because they would not have been able to take one the night before, mostly due to the power outage. She also opened the children's rooms to wake them up, well before their alarm at 6:30, intending to call them both. O'Brien was notably in his bed. His sister was not. Jaquilla was unable to find her within the house or in the family cars. She would go on to tell her husband, Harold, that she could not find her daughter. He suggested Asha might have gone over to his mother's house. When the matriarch of the family called, her sister-in-law, she noted that she was not there. That's when I went into panic mode, and I heard a car next door. I put shoes on and ran outside. After this, she would call her mother, who told her to call the police. Now, by 6:40 a.m., the first police officers would arrive on scene. Police dogs would also be called to the scene. However, they could not pick up the girl's scent. Her mother went through the neighborhood, calling her daughter's name. This would end up awakening everybody in the neighborhood at around 7 a.m. Friends, families, and neighbors all decided to cancel their plans and join in to help find the poor lost girl. This included even the pastor, who would search the vicinity of the church, along with other clergymen who would come to the Degree's aid. By the day's end, all that had been done was for naught, and they only found a mitten. A single mitten, which was rather disappointing, but it left hope that they would find her. The mother said that the mitten did not belong to her daughter, though, noting that no winter clothing had been taken from her house when she left. Local news coverage prompted the 2 drivers who had seen Asha walking along the road to come forward and aid in the investigation. It would be on February 15th that candy wrappers would be found in a shed of a nearby business along the highway, near where the girl had last been sighted. Along with the candy wrappers, a pencil was found, a marker, and a Mickey Mouse-shaped hair bow, which were identified to belonging to the Degree girl. Also found there was a photograph of a black girl around Asha's age, who had been yet to be identified. It was only a trace of her found during the initial search. On February 16th, the mother of Asha realized that her daughter's favorite clothing had been missing, which included a pair of blue jeans with a red stripe. A week later, the search was called off, after 9,000 man-hours had been invested into the search. This search had been a 2 to 3 mile radius. Flyers had been posted everywhere around the area, and more than 300 leads had been followed and or submitted, which ranged from possible sightings to tips about an abandoned house and wells the young girl could have fallen. County Sheriff Dan Crawford would go on to state in a news conference, "We have never really had that first good, substantial lead," and he urged that the media should keep the story alive. At the news conference on February 22nd, 2016, Crawford said he was intending to go long range with the search for the young girl. It would be at around this time when both the FBI and North Carolina's Investigation Bureau would get involved, both of them using their respective databases of missing children to aid with the search. From what her mother had said her daughter had taken, it was believed that the girl had pre-planned what she would be taking and when she would be leaving days prior to the incident. One of the members of the State Bureau of Investigations would go on to state that she was not your typical runaway. Another, an expert by the name of Ben Emery of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, would note that most of the children who run away are at least of the age of 12. An FBI agent also would go on to point out the lack of an issue that might have instigated the child running away, including but not limited to a potentially dysfunctional family, poor academic performance, and their other instigating issues. By this point, media attention had gone nationwide. About a month after Asha's disappearance, the Degree family would appear on Montel Williams' show to call attention to the case of their missing daughter. Also, she would feature on America's Most Wanted and the Oprah Winfrey Show, both having devoted segments to her case. On August 3rd, 2001, Asha's book bag, along with other items belonging to her, would be discovered during a construction project on Highway 18 in Burke County. This would be somewhere around 27 miles north of Shelby. It was wrapped in a plastic bag. The workers who found it said that the book bag had contained Asha's name and phone number. The FBI would take this evidence to their headquarters for further forensic testing. Results from the testing would not be shared publicly. To this date, this is the last evidence that was found involving the case. On the 20th anniversary of Asha's disappearance, the FBI confirmed that the book bag contained a copy of Dr. Seuss's McElligot's Pool and a t-shirt depicting the band New Kids on the Block. Neither appeared to have been her property prior to when they were found in her bag. Said book was property of her elementary school, and later leads based on this would turn out to be dead ends. A 2004 tip linked to an inmate at the county jail caused the sheriff's office to begin digging at the intersection of Lawndale. The bones that were found turned out to be from an animal rather than the girl. Sadly, this was another dead end. The Degrees would take actions into their own hands in order to keep their daughter's memory alive, and the case alive in the minds and eyes of the public. In 2008, they established a scholarship in her name. Family would also start to host an annual walk to raise awareness and money to fund their search. The walk starts at their home and ends at the missing persons billboard dedicated to their daughter along Highway 18, near where she was last seen. It was originally held on February 14th, but it was changed to February 7th in 2015 and February 6th in 2016. The family felt it was not fair to participants to make Valentine's Day a somber occasion. Pictures of both their daughter, both being real, and those showing what she might appear in later years, were created by investigators to help the search, and they have decorated the Degree's household. Her mother would be quoted in saying, "I fully expect her to walk through the door." Jaquilla Degree would go on to lament in 2013 during an interview that her daughter's disappearance had not gotten as much media attention over the years as some subsequent cases of missing children, stating, "Missing white children get more attention. I don't understand why," she said. "I know if you ask them, they will say it's not racial. Oh really, I'm not going to argue because I have common sense." On February 2015, the FBI announced that FBI agents, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office investigators, along with State Bureau of Investigations, would be re-examining the case. And they would also be re-interviewing witnesses. They would also announce a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the disappearance. A community group would also offer an additional $20,000 as a reward. The FBI announced 15 months later, in May 2016, that the reinvestigation of the case had turned up a single new possible lead. They disclosed that Asha may have been sighted getting into a green early 1970s Lincoln Continental Mark IV, or possibly a Ford Thunderbird of the same era, along Route 18, near where she was last seen that night. It was described as having rust along its wheel wells. In September 2017, the FBI announced that the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team was in Cleveland County to assist in the investigation and provide ground investigation technical tools, behavioral analysis, and other analytical support enabled to find the girl, or at least what had happened to her. By September 2017, local agents and investigators had conducted more than 300 interviews. And then, in October 2018, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office detectives appealed for more information from the public, specifically about 2 items of interest which were found in the girl's book bag. The book from the Falston Elementary School library and the New Kids on the Block concert t-shirt. An investigator said the items were vital clues and would need further information to be gathered based on them. It would be much later, in November 2020, that an inmate by the name of Marcus Mellon, who had been convicted of sex crimes against children in 2014, would write to the Shelby Star claiming that the Degree girl had been murdered and he knew where she was, more specifically where her body had been hidden. Then, in February 2021, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office, along with Alan Norman, announced that Mellon's claims had led to yet another dead end. However, there is no indication that the family has lost hope to be reunited with their missing child. If you remained with me until the end, I thank you, and I do hope you stay tuned and subscribe for more content.